No rules when you come out my way. That's why my field stays packed on Fridays. We hunting, fishing, good living, just soaking up every country second we're giving. Yeah, we a long way away from the highway, so go ahead, y'all, you can get sideways. Smoking, sipping, dip spitting, just soaking up every country second you're giving.
Hey, it's Justin Kelly and Laura Starling, the Old Boost podcast, and we are super excited to talk to my old friend, Tom Baldrica. Hey, Tom.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Justin.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for coming, man.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. Laura, can we change one thing from my old friend, Tom Baldrica, to my longtime friend, Tom Baldrica?
We can. This is my longtime friend, Tom Baldrica, who is not old.
Yeah, now that I've hit retirement, that whole age thing, I'm just a little sensitive about. That's so funny. And it is so great to see you, sweetie. And Justin, it's a pleasure to meet you. And again,
nice to meet you. Yes, sir. And heard nothing but
awesome
awesome things about you, man. Nothing but awesome things. I'm excited to hear about it.
Well, I hope that I don't dispel any of those rumors here this afternoon. I'll try to make sure I can live up to everything that Laura has said about me.
Yes, sir.
Well, we definitely are longtime friends, but we kind of want to go. We're going to call you the radio and records man.
Okay.
That's one thing that's, kind of been your career, but we do want to go back and find out where you came from, where you were born, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I was born and raised in northern Minnesota, born actually in a town called Hibbing, Minnesota, which some of your listeners and viewers may be familiar with because it's the home of Bob Dylan. And so I was born in Hibbing up here on Minnesota's Iron Range. Just to give you some perspective, if you look at a map, the point of Lake Superior is Duluth, Minnesota. I am exactly 60 miles north of Duluth, which is exactly 100 miles south of the Canadian border. So that's where I was born and raised. I graduated from high school from Virginia, Minnesota in 1980. I went to the University of Minnesota from 1981 to 1985. My degree says public relations, but I really majored in marching band. I'm a tuba player and played 4 years in the U of M band, 3 as rank lieutenant. Went overseas with my marching band buddies twice. We went to Spain 1 year. And then 2 years later, we went to London for 7 days. So when I say I majored in marching band, I'm really not kidding you. And then when I graduated from college, again, with my degree in public relations, I had dabbled a little bit in radio when I was in high school. I joined Junior Achievement Radio, Laura, when I was in 10th grade. And my first assignment was to board up the polka show for Joe Svek and Tom Bombich, Sunday afternoons at 4 o'clock on WHLB AM 1400. And so I'd cue up the records for those guys and they'd play the polka music, and then I'd get to do the legal ID and every once in a while give the time and temperature. And I thought I was a big damn deal because I was on the local AM radio station. So after college, I always wanted to get back into radio. It was sort of always what I wanted to do. And so the craziest opportunity presented itself when I graduated from college. I was working on campus in Minneapolis in a little section just adjacent to the U called Dinkytown. And there was a sporting goods store there, Gold Country Sports, and it was owned by Jim Dutcher, who was the longtime U of M basketball coach for the Gophers back in the 70s and 80s, and by a guy named Bill Vidmar, who was a friend of my dad's. So that was my job out of college, just to, start to get off mom and dad's payroll and start to see if I could be an adult on my own. And I didn't really dig retail because whoever said the customer is always right never worked in retail, right, Justin? So
exactly.
I friend of mine. This is the honest to God truth, you guys. This friend of mine who I had known since he's 4 years younger than me, and I'd known him since he was a kid because his mom and my dad played in the same big band called Sentimental Journey. And my dad was a very fine trumpet player. My father was a band director, and we can talk about all that too. But my dad and Claire Beffra played in this band called Sentimental Journey, and Frank was 4 years younger than me. And when he turned 19, his father gave him a radio station in a divorce settlement. I kid you not. He gave him a radio station. And so I was up for a local festival called the Land of the Loon Festival that happens here in Virginia every year. And Frank was out there broadcasting with the radio station, and I hadn't seen him in a while, so I came up and we started talking a little bit. And when the event was over, we went downtown and grabbed ourselves an adult beverage, and he was telling me all this stuff that was going on. And in typical Tom style, I just started firing off a whole bunch of shit to him that I thought would be really great, and how to program a really cool up-tempo country radio station that didn't need to sound like your sleepy mom and dad's radio station, but needed a little energy. And let's play the Eagles, and let's play the Doobie Brothers, and let's play Skinner, and let's play the Marshall Tucker Band, and let's play the Allman Brothers, and let's bring that Southern rock sort of energy to this thing, and let's blow people out of the damn water. Well, he bought the bullshit hook, line, and sinker. So about a week later, I swear to God, he calls me up. He goes, Tom, he goes, man, I've been thinking about everything you said. He goes, I think that really works. Will you come up and let's put this radio station on the air? We were going to upgrade from 1,000 watts to 100,000 watts, move the dial position down from 107.1 to right smack dab in the middle at 99.9. We called it Alive and Kickin' Country. We had a nuclear pink background with a black horse that was just cool. You could see those billboards for about 3 miles away, and those bumper stickers were killer. And here we are, 2025. That radio station is still playing country music 37 years later. Now,
wow.
Yeah. Now, and I started my career there. Then I took a little detour to the record business for 20 years. And then I came back and finished in radio and actually did my final radio show on the very same radio station that I put on the air back in April of 1988. So anyhow, so that's how I got back into the radio business. This is the what would it have been? This would have been the summer of 1987. When I started at the radio station, we did about 9 months of prep to get ready to launch. We launched on April 8th of 1988. And then I stayed with the label until October, or with the radio station until I went to work for the label for BNA Records in October of 1993. And then that's when I met Laura, when I was calling on WDEN. And so we met in 1993, and I stayed in that job. I was the Southeast Regional for BNA from 93 through August of 97. And then I moved to Nashville, and I was named the vice president of promotion for the BNA label. I had that job from 97 to 2006. Then they moved me over to the vice president of marketing for Sony Music Nashville. So at that time, then I'm dealing with Arista, RCA, and BNA. I had 7 departments and 25 people reporting to me at that point. I did that for 4 years. Then I was asked to leave the building on July 28th of 2010. And went over and went to work for my good friend Shannon Houchins over at Average Joe's and Colt Ford. And we had a great time. And Laura's old friend Tony Moriello was over there too. And so we had a great time at Average Joe's. I did that for 2 years. And then I used a little bit of my leverage. I had been down south for 20 years. My parents were aging. And there was a big part of me that wanted to get home. And so I cut a deal with my friend Mark Wright, who I'd known forever, and Mark had been chasing me to come work for him at Show Dog. And I said, Mark, if you'll let me move back to Minnesota, I'll come over and I'll sign a 2-year deal and I'll run Show Dog. And that was Toby Keith's label. And so I did that from 2012 until 2014. And honestly, you guys, I probably would have kept on doing that. It's just that they had a little different objective for the label than what I thought the label should be. Toby had a portfolio of a lot of ownings and a lot of holdings, not all of which needed to be profitable. And I just didn't particularly like being in one of those places that didn't need to be profitable. I mean, goddamn, if we're going to play, let's play to win. I mean, let's not play just to play. So I get it. It was his money. It was his deal. You do whatever you want to do. But just after that period of time, I just knew that I did not want to do that anymore. And so then the last 10 years of my life, I ended up back at the radio station. I ended up going to work for Midwest Communications, who was our competitor when we put the radio station on the air. And then the old line, if you can't beat them, you buy them. And so they ended up buying this radio station. And all these years later, I went to work for the program director, Jeff McCarthy, who was the national program director, who I was driving crazy when he was up, back in the day trying to compete against us when we put the station on the air. So I had a whole bunch of full circle moments that happened. And then I did that from 2014 until 2024. And then at the end of last year, at the end of December of 2024, did my final radio show on 99.9 and called it a career. So now I am officially retired. But Laura, you will appreciate that. My last radio show, my 4 guests to call and wish me a happy retirement were John Anderson, Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert, Kenny Chesney. That's not a bad way to go out.
That's no, that's a big way to go out.
That
That's
is.
a big way.
So so it has been a remarkable ride for this small town kid. And as I said on my final radio show, never in a million years, if you would have told me that the day I walked through that door to queue up polka records with Tom and Joe, that 40 plus years later, 47 years later, that I would have a career like this to be able to talk about, I'd have told you to put the crack pipe down. I would have never believed it. And still sometimes, honestly, and not being disingenuous at all, there are still some times it's hard to believe that was my career and that those were my moments. But it was an amazing ride, and I am grateful to have taken it, and I am grateful to have met top quality people like Laura Starling along the way who have made this career a whole bunch of fun. And I mean that sincerely, and Laura knows I love her to death. But that was, I am still really stunned at where this career took me, but I'm really proud of it.
Well, I think that our listeners and Justin and me too, because I don't know all your stories. We'd love to hear some stories about first of all, your days at B&A Records.
Well, my days at B&A Records were a lot of fun. It was really interesting to take the jump from the radio side to the record side, because I played John Anderson records and I played Lori Morgan records, and I was playing like Doug Supernaw records when Doug was new, and Turner Nichols and these guys as they were putting the B&A label together. And I'm playing those records, and they're just names on a flat disc, because back in that day they were still sending out vinyl 45s, and they were just names on a label, right? I mean, they were superstar names, and I knew the music. But now suddenly, I'm like in the same circles with them, and it's like this is just a little daunting. And so at first, you take my Yankee ass and you bring me from northern Minnesota and you put me right down there in the heart of the South. And as you can tell, I never lost my Yankee accent. I don't quite sound like y'all sound down there in Macon.
No, you don't sound like us.
I don't sound like y'all down there, I know. So, so in that sense, I mean, it was a little weird in going to a place that I had never been before. And I had never been to Atlanta, and I had never in my life said the words, I think I want to move to Atlanta. But I just felt like that the opportunity was right. And as it turned out, it was really fortuitous, because a year earlier I had turned down Laura, our old friend Chuck Thagard. You remember Chuck? Mm-hmm. Chuck had asked me to come replace him in Minneapolis in the fall of 1992. And for whatever reason, my instinct, which I've always trusted, I've always believed in, something in me just said, this is not the moment. This is not the time to do that. So I didn't, which would have been ironic. I'd have gotten in the record business working in Minnesota. But as it turned out, it played out the way it was supposed to, because when I went to Atlanta, I was able to work in the branch back in the days when record labels still had distribution branches. And so coming to Atlanta on North Lake Boulevard, right there off of I-85, it was like music business university for a guy like me. I mean, I knew a little bit about country radio and I knew a little bit about radio, but I didn't necessarily understand the dynamics and the economics of a record label. And I sure as hell didn't understand how the records got into the stores and who brought them out there and how they did it and blah, blah, blah. And so being in that branch environment was, as I said, it was a master's class in the music business, because you had the country guys, you had the pop guys, you had the classical guys, you had the field marketing reps who were the people that put the the albums into the stores, the people that went out and did those really cool decorations back when stores had record departments and back when we actually had record stores. So it was meant for me to be there. Plus, it was my closer proximity to Nashville, and I found myself in Nashville a lot. And I was very fortunate that I had a couple of really high profile believers in me in the Atlanta branch. Tom O'Flynn, who was the branch manager, and Susan Luke, who was the sales manager, were both very, very complimentary of me. They would tell anybody that they could tell in Nashville, hey, this young kid you got down here, he's really good. Keep your eye on this kid. And so they brought me to Nashville a bunch. I was able to kind of ingrain myself into the company a little bit quicker. And that ultimately, you guys, is the reason that I ended up being in Atlanta, not in Minneapolis. And what my instinct was telling me is that I don't think my trajectory was the same if I would have gone to Minneapolis. Now, I'd like to think I could have baffled them enough with my bullshit from far away that they would have ultimately figured it out. but the idea of them being able to see me so much more and really organically, because it's only a 3.5 or 4 hour drive up there. So there was a lot of reason for me to go. I was single. I didn't have kids, and there was no reason for me to be tethered to Atlanta. So anytime that I could get up there, I was. And so I moved up there, then took the job in 97. And then moved into the marketing department from there. But those early days in B&A, that's where I cut my teeth. And bringing John was having a bunch of success with Straight Tequila Night and Money in the Bank. And I got in there for I've Got It Made, and I wish I could have been there for that, and had some hits with John, and Lori was having hits and had some hits with her. And Super and I had a couple of hits before he self-destructed, and we were on our way with Mindy until she went crazy. And then with Kenny, obviously, Kenny will always be sort of the crown jewel of my career. Took him on his first radio promotion tour going east on I-20 to go visit WKXC in Augusta, and hoping someday that maybe somebody might play one of your records, and maybe we'll sell a few albums, and maybe even you might sell a few concert tickets. Well, 25 years later, 30 years later, here we sit, Country Music Hall of Famer, #1 artist in the first quarter of the century, 35 #1 hits, blah, blah. I mean, the list is so ridiculous. You just could have never dreamed that big. So those early days, Laura, at the B&A label were like another 4 years of college for me. I was learning a lot more about your side of the business, because I just came from a little small market radio station that nobody gave a damn about, to dealing with all of you guys who are making up these national playlists and all the heat that's put on you guys for adding records and rotating records and everything else. So it was just a whole educational period for me at the B&A label. And I remember the majority of it, but I also know that the last 1.5 years of my time in Atlanta, I knew I was leaving, and I knew that I was moving to Nashville. The same day as the Oklahoma City bombing, April 19th, 1995, was the day that they told me Dale Turner and Ken Vanderand and Randy Goodman, Laura, sat me down and said, look, we're kind of tired of all these people that call, and they want to talk to you, and they want you to come work for them. We have no intention of letting you go. So we're just letting you know right now, 18 months from now, we're moving you to Nashville. You'll be taking Ken's job. Just keep your mouth shut till we make the announcement. So, so my time in Atlanta, that first bit of it was really, like I said, that accelerated learning. And then the second half of it was really understanding what my new role was going to look like once I got to Nashville. Because once you move into the corporate office, my clients no longer are Laura Starling and Jerry Marshall from WDEN, because that's what Tony Morial was going to come in and do. My clients now are the artists, the managers, the other department heads at the label, and the other people in town. And so that was another whole transition for me to be able to prepare for. So all of that happened in those first 4 years, from 93 to 97 at the regional level in B&A in Atlanta.
Unreal.
That is amazing.
I mean, wow. So let's talk about some of, I know you got some good stories about Kenny and John. And I mean, I remember when Straight Tequila Night was out, and we had John Anderson for a big show down here. It was the most people I've ever seen on the street in Macon ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure you've got some pretty cool stories about those guys.
I've got a couple. I shared this with John the day that he called me and wished me a happy retirement. And this is as serious as I will be all day, but this is legitimate. John, when I first came, John was again in the throes of this second coming after swinging and wild and blue and catch a falling star, and then he had that little bit of a lapse, and then it was straight tequila, and it was Seminole Wind and Katie bar the door. Here he was again. And so he was having this success. John was very opinionated about what he wanted. He knew what he liked. He knew what he didn't like. And so my teammates, as I'm coming in as the new kid, and I was telling them that I was about to go on this run through the Southeast with John, who was from Florida. And we were about to go on this run, about a 4-day run, where he was going to play a couple of different events, and he was going to the Strawberry Plant Festival, and then he was going to play the Florida State Fair up in Jacksonville in these 4 days. So I'm asking my guys, how do I go about getting John to do any of this stuff? And they're all like, well, good luck, because he doesn't like to do any of that shit. So I don't know if you're going to get him to do a thing. Well, I just acting like I didn't know any better, because I didn't. And when you're a rookie, you get a lot of opportunity to ask for forgiveness instead of for permission. So I just kind of went to Bobby Roberts and I had mapped out this thing. I said, hey, look, John is going to be in Florida. I know kind of what the schedule is. The radio stations are going to be here at these particular events. Where he's playing is X amount of miles from the radio station in West Palm Beach. I'd like to bring him over here. And I kind of laid out this whole schedule for 4 days. And Bobby Roberts came back to me. He called me a little bit later in the day. He goes, Tom, that looks really good. He goes, we're good for it. It's all good. And I'm thinking, well, shit, man, this was easy. You guys, you're telling me this is all that difficult and whatever. So we go through and we have a really great 4 days. And I'm really happy with it. And I've had a great time, and I felt really good about what had gone on. And I was Saturday night, last of the 4 nights, and I was just getting ready to head back to my hotel. I had an early morning flight back to Atlanta. And so I said to Tommy, the road manager, I said, hey, man, great to see you. Thanks for everything. And I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks when we catch up again. He goes, hey, before you leave, John wants to see you. And I just got like this shiver. And I thought, oh, Jesus. And I started kind of going through the whole week. It's like, I'm like, what?
What did you do?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I am trying to go over everything. And this is all happening as I got about a 50-foot walk to the bus, right? And my mind is going about 1,000,000 miles an hour. And we get over there, and Tommy opens the door, and I walk up, and then Tommy shuts the door. So now it's just me and John on the bus, and I'm thinking, damn, I have been called to the principal's office. So I come in, and I am scared shitless. And I come in, and he says, sit down, Haas. And he just looks at me, and he kind of leans over from one side of the bus to the other. He said, I just want to tell you something. He said, I've been watching you this week. He said, you're as good as any record guy I've ever seen. He said, I've been in this business a long time. He said, but these people respect you. You know what you're doing. He said, you're going to run this record label someday. And I just really wanted to let you know that. And I want to say thank you. And he reached over and shook my hand. And he just said, anything you need at any time, you let me know. And that moment, that was the first validation that this rookie had that I belonged in this league, that I could play, that regardless of where I came from, regardless of the fact that I may not have some of these other credentials that some of these people had, this man who had success in this format and who I looked up to said that to me, that changed my life. It gave me a confidence that heretofore I had not had in the record business. I've always been a pretty confident person, but I wasn't sure about that. And that moment made all the difference in the world. And all these years later, I just saw John 2 weeks ago. He was playing up here in Minnesota. And we just spent 30 minutes together before the show and got to spend time together, and we've stayed in contact ever since. But that was a really, really remarkable moment for me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it
One
was
that
a
one that I
pivotal
will never
thing in your
forget.
life. That was a pivotal
One-
moment in your life. And a lot of times people that give those statements and that encouragement to people, a lot of times they don't realize how big of an impact it's having on somebody. You know, he took
and,
that time to do that because he's a good man, you know.
and look, Laura, I don't want to get ahead of your script here, but this is a perfect opportunity to talk about something else that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really love to share with people. And Justin just hit on it about telling people, because I had my 60th birthday a couple of years back, and I didn't really deal with it very well. I was throwing a bit of a pity party for myself, and I thought, man, 60, I'm like now officially old. 20, 40, 60, 80. I'm in the fourth quarter, and you know, God, really. So after a couple of days of the pity party, I thought, you know what? You got to knock this off, because there's a lot of people that I know, a lot of people that other people know, that never got to 60 and would really, really love to get to 60. So you whiny little baby, why don't you celebrate the fact that you are 60? And why don't you take ownership of the fact that you are 60? And then why don't you take a look and instead of feeling sorry for yourself, why don't you express a little gratitude to the people who helped get you here? And that whole thing birthed the birthday present I gave myself for my 60th birthday, which was a gratitude bucket list, not events, but 10 people, the 10 most influential people in my career that I wanted to see one more time, to be able to sit in front of them and say, look, without you, without that advice, without that ass chewing, without that belief, without any or all of the above, I'm not me without you. And you need to know that. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. In the 2.5 years since I created that list, I've seen 5 of the 10 people on the list. And to sit down in front of somebody and to tell them something like that is extraordinarily powerful to deliver.
I'm
But
sure.
man, it is extraordinarily powerful watching it be received. Because I think that and here's the old guy on the lawn now, but I think in this day and age, we have lost so much about human decency. We have lost so much about respect. We have lost so much about the fact that we have so much more in common than we don't, and we've lost sight of all of that. And this moment to just be able to take some time to tell somebody, you know, has been extraordinary. And then I've also have passed that piece of information along to anybody who is celebrating a milestone birthday and tell them that whole kind of that quick little story. And they all come back to me and say, man, that's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. And I said, good. Then if you really think it's a good idea, then you pick up the phone sometime this week and you call somebody that you know that you need to tell them how much they matter. And I'm telling you guys, I have gotten a handful of emails or texts about a week or two later saying, Tom, after our conversation, I picked up the phone and called so-and-so, and it was unbelievable. So again, I know I'm a little ahead of your question there, but it was the perfect time to talk about gratitude. And Justin, that really was important to me. It was important to me as I was winding down my career, but it's more important to me even now more than ever, because what I've realized in retirement is that, yes, I loved the concerts and I loved the Macon Rib Fest and I loved all the fun that Laura and I had at Jim Shaw's and I loved all the stuff that we got to do. But what I love more than anything else is I love the people. For me to be sitting on the other side of this phone and smiling at my friend Laura and having this exchange, I wish I could be there to hug her neck in person. But
Me too.
but having these are the moments that have defined my life, and that I have made a pact to myself that they are going to define my retirement. I'm not done coming to Macon, and I'm not done coming to Atlanta, and I'm not done going to visit my friends around the country, because that's the greatest gift that I've been given, is this unbelievable cross-section of people that I've had the opportunity to meet, to work with, to compete against in a lot of cases. But that gratitude thing is really, really important. And to anybody that's listening today or watching, if there's somebody in your life that you've never told them how much they mean to you, what are you waiting for? Don't wait anymore, please. Because I promise you, you do it once and you're going to know how you feel. But when you see that look on somebody's face across the table, it's extraordinary. So,
Oh, yeah.
So
gratitude.
will you
Very.
tell me the first 5 people that you've done that with?
Yeah, yes. Number one on my list is a fellow that Laura knows. His name is Ken Vanderand. Ken was the head of promotion at the B&A Records label. Ken is the guy that was responsible for getting me into the record business. The first time I talked to him, I knew there was something different about him, and I knew there was something different about his approach. And he was, to me, and still is, the single most effective and most efficient and most buttoned up promotion man that I've ever met. And I stole a lot of his shit along the way. I don't mind telling you because I told him. But he and I also had a very difficult period. After, as important as he was to me, we also had a falling out over an employee that we both felt very differently about. He protected, I fired. And when I fired his longtime friend, I called to tell him that I had after Ken had retired. And he said, yeah, I've already heard, and I really don't have anything to say to you. And he hung up the phone on me.
Oh, no.
And we did not have any sort of communication for probably 8 years. And this is the man, again, that I work day to day with. This is the man that I'm not in the record business without, and the single most important influence in my career. And now it is radio silence, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with me. 8 years later, I get an email one day that had come down the chain. I got it from my boss, Butchwa, who got it from his friend, Eddie Mascola, who got it from Ken, looking for a telephone number and an email address on John Rich. And I had the number, and I thought, well, this is as good a time as any to see if I can close the loop. So instead of going back down the line, I just closed the loop and sent it to Ken and said, hey, I understand you're looking for John's number. Here's his cell number. Here's his email address. And by the way, how you been in the last 8 years? And I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I would get an answer. I wouldn't get an answer. And in about 24 hours, there was an answer that came back, said, thank you. I appreciate the information. And Ken was a big baseball fan. And he said, you know, I can't get to the ball as deep in the hole as I used to, but I still have a pretty good eye at the plate. And that was the beginning of sort of the comeback. And then every once in a while I would get an email, and then pretty soon I was on the distribution list for his weekly cartoons, all these things that he would curate. And then I was on the list for the newsletter. And so the only communication that we have had has been all on a screen. So a couple of years back, as I put together the gratitude list, and it just so happened that my 61st birthday coincided with my 30th anniversary in the record business, because I actually started on B&A the day before my 31st birthday, October 9th of 1993. So on my 30th anniversary, I sent a note to Ken via email. And I said, today is my 30th anniversary in the record business. And I just want you to know that if it hadn't been for you, I'd have never gotten in the record business. And I damn sure know I'd have never had the success I had. And it's been way too long since I've seen you. So I would love to come to Orlando and have lunch if you're up for it. And so he sent me back a note. This was in October. He sent me back a note, gave me some dates in December. And I said, I'm glad that you're excited about it. I said, however, I can't do it in December because I'm still working. I said, but I'm thinking more like April. I'll let you get through March Madness because he loves college basketball, and then I'll come down. So we set this date in April, and we're about 3 weeks out from this date. And I get an email from him saying, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that, I don't understand why you're coming here. I don't understand why you would make this kind of trip just to see me. I'm old, I'm cantankerous. I don't like people. I just don't understand why you want to come. And I hadn't said anything about the bucket list to him. And so I sent him a note back and I said, look, I really didn't want to tell you this till I saw you face to face. And after you read this, if you still don't want to get together, I will respect that wish. I will be extraordinarily disappointed, but I will respect your wish. I said, and then I kind of gave him a little bit of thing about the gratitude and about the bucket list. And he hit me back and he said, I still think you're crazy, but if you're willing to make that kind of effort, I am too. So we set this date, and Laura, and Justin, I had no idea what the hell this was going to be. I really didn't. I didn't know if this was going to be the shortest lunch in the history of the planet. I didn't know if he was going to even show. I mean, if I was going to walk into Panera and there was going to be a little thing that said, "Sorry, I wigged out on you." I wasn't sure. But when I got there, he was there, and we ended up spending 6 hours and 15 minutes together. Just
Wow.
sat,
Really?
yeah,
In that same place.
That's
same place.
fantastic.
We just sat there through the course of the afternoon. We talked about old times, we talked about new times, we talked about people we liked, we talked about people we didn't like. We compared a lot of notes. And then, and in the course of that conversation, I had the opportunity to look at him and say, look, I understand that you were really reticent to want to do this, and I understand it. But Ken, let me tell you really why I'm here. And I kind of then really went into detail about this whole thing about gratitude and where I was at and how I got here. And I said, so, it was really just important, Ken. You're the number one guy on this list. You're the biggest get for my Tonight Show. You're the guy that I want. And I said, because you just need to understand something. It's one thing for you to have read this on a screen a couple of times, but look at my face when I tell you what you've meant and what an impact that you've had on my career. And that's when the old curmudgeon got a little misty-eyed. And I said to him, and I said, Ken, you know what? I appreciate you responding that way. I said, the reason that I'm here is twofold. One, because I want to make sure that the people who had that impact in my life, they know it, and I want you to hear it from me. And the second thing is, man, I am trying to put the karma out there in the universe that if people feel about me the way that I feel about you, then damn it, tell me. And don't wait to say something nice about me on a card when I die. Say it to me now. And that was the moment where I kind of watched his head snap back, where it's like, all right, now you finally understood why this lunch trip to Orlando meant so much to me. And later that night, I got a really, really beautiful email from him saying, I didn't quite know what today was going to be all about. He said, but this turned out to be one of the best days I've had in a really long time. And I appreciate your perseverance. And I really appreciate all the nice things you had to say. And for what it's worth, I think that your gratitude bucket list is $1 million idea. So that was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Sounds like it.
It was an extraordinary day. The other people, Laura, that I've seen, Bill Poindexter and Sammy George at US 101 in Chattanooga. And I'm so glad I did, because, Dex has had some health issues, and I don't think his memory is as good as it used to be. And I'm not sure he'd remember this fat Yankee anymore. So I'm really glad that I had that chance to spend time with him. And Sammy was one of the smartest executives I'd ever met. And I watched how he dealt with people. I watched how he treated people. I watched how he treated his clients. And I learned an awful lot from Sammy. And then the other two people right up the road from you, my dear friend Johnny Gray, and his significant other, common law wife, Susan Luke. And I mentioned Susan's name before because she was the branch manager and the sales manager. And Susan was one of those people that was always waving my flag and was telling the guys in Nashville about me all the time. And Johnny, of course, we just became such great friends. We spent a lot of time together. He would come to branch events, and sometimes it was me and Johnny, and I didn't know another soul, but I got to spend a lot of time with Johnny. We've become great friends. I'm still in touch with him all the time. And so those are the first 5. And I've got a couple of people left. I've got 2 scheduled for later in the year. And the only one that I'm not really sure about, Laura, would be a fellow by the name of Joe Galante. He's on the list.
Yeah.
Whether I want to put myself through that emotional conversation or not, I don't know. Extraordinarily influential in my career, the most complicated relationship I've had in my career. I just don't know if I want to go down that path. I'm trying to find the courage and the strength and the desire to want to go through what could end up being an extraordinarily emotional conversation that could have a really good outcome, or it could have a really bad outcome.
Well, I just think it's fantastic that you're doing this.
Me too. This is a great idea.
It's a fantastic idea. And I hope that anybody who's listening will think about
Maybe this
this.
will inspire somebody to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. And I would say the same to both of you. You know, I mean, you're Justin, I've just met you, but everything that Laura tells me, you are a highly successful individual, motivated, driven, doing very, very well. But I'm also going to venture to say that you didn't get there by yourself. That there were a lot of people that believed in you along the way.
That's right.
There was somebody that gave you a break. There was somebody that believed, somebody that maybe gave you a second chance. Or maybe
That's
somebody
right.
didn't listen. Maybe somebody didn't listen to what somebody else told them and took a chance on you, whatever that would be. And Laura, I know it's the same for you. So I throw the same challenge back to you guys as I throw to everybody else. If there's somebody in your life that you've never told them how much they meant to you, do it this week.
Go do it this week.
Do it
Right.
this week.
I love that.
And because I promise you, won't be the last time you do it. So anyway, sorry, Laura, that got a little off the script, but
I love it.
when Justin brought up the gratitude thing, that honestly has really been probably the without making it sound like I'm wearing a fucking halo. I mean,
Right.
it has been a driving principle of these last couple of years of my life, and especially as I've worked my way towards retirement, because I do understand, as I talk about this career, as I think about these extraordinary people that have come into my life, the unbelievable opportunities that I've been presented, the stuff that I've seen, the places I've been, I have had more than my fair share of fairy dust sprinkled on me, and I know it. And the older I get, the more I realize that I am the exception and I am not the rule. But again, any sense that this was all because of me, no. And finding that voice, to be vulnerable enough, to be human enough, to be open enough to look somebody in the eye with tears in your eyes and tell them how much they mean to you, I can't get enough of it. And it's not anything done for anything other than the true goodness of this kid who is unbelievably grateful for the ride and will do everything I can. And I have tried. I mean, it's not like I don't think I just became a positive person a couple of years ago. Laura, you can vouch for that. I think I've always been pretty up tempo and I've been pretty positive, and I've worked very hard at leading my teams and leading people and offering sound advice professionally and personally wherever I can help. But I just feel like these last couple of years have just been next level. And it's made a difference in me. I see things in a lot different way. That's really important. So I appreciate your kind words about the idea. I'm glad that you like it. And again, I throw that challenge out to you. Make that call this week. Send a note to somebody, call them, because it will inspire you and it will change your life.
All right, we got to ask you, because I know that it was a couple of weeks ago. Tell us about Kenny at the Sphere.
The Sphere. Oh my God. The first thing I was thinking about, I would have loved to have been in the conference room at the engineering firm one morning when a guy walks in and says, "Hey fellas, let me tell you about this idea that I've got." Walking into this place, the best, I mean, if you're not familiar with Sphere, it's in Las Vegas, and it is basically like going to a concert in a snow globe, because everything is, you're surrounded by a 360-degree screen. The stage is very small. The seats are all on one side. There's 17,160 seats. And it is the most intense concert experience I've ever been to. Because, I mean, and Kenny's artwork, Laura, his artwork over the years, as he has built and created No Shoes Nation and all the imagery and all the things that he's done, all the great scrims and all the shows, all of that artwork just comes back to a whole new life in this building. And from the opening moments where it's about a 2-minute film that starts underwater and you end up crashing through the top of the Sphere, it's like you are in an IMAX theater on steroids. It is the damnedest thing I've ever seen. It felt like that room was moving. There's 167,000 speakers. every seat has its own Dolby digital bass. So you're getting goosed by the bass all night long. It's like, yeah, do that again. And there are the screen resolution, our HD home are in 4K resolution. This screen is 16K, and it is remarkable. And when they do these panoramic shots, the motion stuff is kind of cool, and there's a lot of great stuff. And Kenny went, his visuals are next level, because I went 2 nights in a row, and one friend who went with me had seen the Eagles at Sphere and said that musically, of course, the Eagles are Eagles, but Kenny's video was next level. And then the friend I went with the next night had seen the Grateful Dead at Sphere and said the same thing, that they had great visuals, but they didn't compare to what Kenny had done. But the thing that sticks with me amongst many, but Laura, you know the song, I Go Back, Sunday Church, the choir, the whole Rudy Doo. There's the shot getting into the third verse. It's it's shot to scale. So it's like you are sitting in the back seat of the Lutheran church in Luttrell, Tennessee. And it is just this, it's like suddenly you are in this church, and it holds that shot for maybe 5 or 6 seconds. And then the very next shot is taken from the goalpost at Neyland Stadium. And so you're looking at 100,000 people going crazy. The marching band is on the field. The sousaphones are glistening in the sunshine. The band is coming out through the team is coming out through the tunnel. And that sky is so blue that you literally are shading your eyes because you feel like you're outside. I mean, and with that Dolby bass, the damn thing is shaking like Neyland Stadium shakes. I came out of that concert exhausted. I mean, it was like I had nothing left. I felt like I was the performer, man. I had nothing left to give. But it was the most remarkable concert experience I've ever been a part of. I mean, when you're looking straight up at that 300-foot dome and those visuals are raining down on you, you're ducking. I mean, it was intense, man. It was, anybody who loves music needs to get there. And Kenny is doing another residency out there next summer. So for the country fans, there's lots of reasons to get out there. Highly suggest going.
Yes.
I've never experienced anything like that in my entire life.
I know, when I saw that he was going to play again next year, I said, me and Justin, we got to go.
Oh yeah. I saw a lot of
gotta go.
videos on Facebook of being in the Sphere, but I know that is nothing.
Justin, it just doesn't. I mean, and again, I had a bunch of people telling me, and I was watching some stuff, and I'm the same way. It's like I thought I was prepared, and then I walked in that place and I said, man, it'll be something. And it was everything I expected and a whole bunch more. So yeah, anybody who loves music, make sure that you get to Sphere.
All right. Just any story that you think we need about any artist.
About any artist.
Terry,
Wow.
Kenny, John.
I was going to ask you one thing.
Go ahead.
I know throughout the years you had different maybe job titles and different things you did for these for the record labels. Was there somebody along the way when you might have been over maybe discovering talent that you were like, that person doesn't have the juice, and they ended up being something big and you kind of were wrong about it? Or
I was wrong in the wrong way, lots. But because Justin, as an executive in the company, I certainly had some input. If I went down to a local club in Macon and I saw the Justin Kelly band playing, and I thought, man, we could use the Justin Kelly band on the BNA label. I mean, I would certainly go to the A&R department and say, hey, are you aware these guys are blah, blah, blah. So I didn't have any actual say-so per se in the signing, but we peddled some influence wherever we could. And we had to fight for, once the label group would sign it, we had 3 labels within the building, Arista, BNA, and RCA. And then the fight would be on. I mean, once we signed somebody, we'd see the showcase, and then A&R would come in and say, yep, we signed the Justin Kelly band. And so then each of the labels would sort of look and say, well, okay, we don't have a band, and Arista's got 2 bands, so maybe we got a shot. I got a space here, blah, blah, go through all this stuff. And so we would fight for people. The artist that I fought for, that I would fight for until the day I die, we were wrong 3 times, was the Warren Brothers. And Laura knows the Warren Brothers. They will end up in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You can mark my words on that. They've got a list of hit songs as long as my left arm. They are two of the most talented guys I know. They have done a lot of great behind the scenes work. They both have been sober for 25 years, and they have done a lot of great behind the scenes work with a lot of artists, with a lot of management people in Nashville. They become kind of the go-to when it comes to interventions and problems. They don't talk about it, but it's extraordinary. So I always look at that, Justin, as the one, and I will go to my grave believing that we were right. We were just ahead of our time. But that's the one that I'm most proud of, because that to me is what unabashed belief is all about. I didn't give a shit if you were paying me. I didn't give a shit about anything. I believed in what they were doing. I loved their music. I mean, I loved everything about them. As a matter of fact, at the end of August, my BNA team, we're all getting together for a reunion when the Warren Brothers play their 25th anniversary show of their King of Nothing album in Nashville. So we're going down and getting together, and it's all these years later. And this is an act that was signed to the BNA label 3 times and dropped 3 times. And yet those guys will say better things about our record label than probably any other artist, except probably Chesney, because they knew that we gave everything that we had. And right. That in a nutshell is what I'm the most proud of. So that's sort of like a reverse answer to your question. You know, look, I'm going to be honest with you. There were a couple of people that we saw in showcases, and I went, okay, I mean, decent, but I don't know that they're going to be great. And then went on to have decent careers. I don't think that I ever really missed one where I went, wow, tone deaf on that. And then they went on to sell millions of records. But that the Warren Brothers thing was just, that to me was sort of the ultimate. When you believe, I never stopped believing, even when they weren't recording for us anymore. They would send me music all the time. I would see them all the time. We would talk all the time. We still talk all the time. And I'm really most proud of that it was so much more than just about the music. There was a belief in these guys, and I still believe in these guys. And it will be a glorious night when they make the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and that will happen. There's no doubt about it, and I will be there when it does.
There you go. I was always wondering that kind of. You hear a lot of people like, I was wrong, and who was you wrong about? Reba McEntire or something. I mean,
I think that there's a million of those stories. And, I mean, an artist who passed on a particular song that went on to be huge for somebody else, and those stories all over the place. And promotion people can tell you, I mean, the key as a good promotion guy is that you never really should know personally how I feel. I mean, it's my job to make you believe in this artist. Whether I think they're worth a damn or not doesn't make any bit of difference. It's my job to get you to sort of see it that way. And so I always felt like every artist got the best that we had to give. We put the same level forth effort-wise that we did on Kenny and Lone Star that we did on some of these other acts that we had no hits on. I never felt like we shortchanged anybody. And all these years later, guys, I'm still in contact with a lot of artists on our label and that we're in the label group that I still have relationships with, because they knew they didn't get shortchanged in an effort, and they knew they were never lied to. I never lied to anybody about what was going on. As hard as it was to tell the truth, it was a whole hell of a lot easier, because then I didn't have to remember what I said. So I'm really proud of that in a business that sometimes isn't always forthcoming with the truth. I'm really proud of the fact that I never sold out my integrity. And I think all these years later, that's why I still have the relationships I do, is because people knew I was shooting them straight. And that's something that nobody can ever take away from me.
Yeah, that's probably rare in show business to find somebody that will not be in their integrity.
Well, yeah, when the camera turns off, you can ask Laura. I mean, and she will tell you about the ones who you knew were legit and the ones who were, who were not. And we've all been down that road, but the key is that just you treat everybody the same, you treat everybody properly, and the ones that you love, you just treat them a little bit better. You don't have to treat anybody any worse. Just treat the ones that you love a little bit better.
Well, for 25 or so years, you were mainly kind of Southern rock, and you said, country mainly.
Right.
And then, for those couple of years that you jumped on board with Shannon and Cole, was that like a little bit of a learning experience?
Yes, absolutely.
Tom, I was going to tell Justin, Tom actually worked with Danny Boone.
Okay.
Oh, you said Danny.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, Justin, when I went over there, first of all, what was really great about going to Average Joe's was that they were one of the, they came on as an independent label and certainly felt like we were climbing uphill a little bit because independent labels were still not having the success in Nashville. This again now is 2012. It's not like it happened in the last 5 or 6 years where all these independents started to make joint venture deals and everything went crazy. Average Joe's was this little dinghy of a boat in this big harbor full of yachts. But what was really fun about it is that they were on the cutting edge of internet marketing. They were on the cutting edge of fan base marketing and realizing that if Colt could play up the Eastern Seaboard for 14 or 15,000 people every time he went up there and we were selling records and selling merchandise, then why wouldn't you just kind of keep on going up the Eastern Seaboard and see if you can build it out a little bit piece by piece instead of thinking that you got to have the West Coast being the same way that you had the East Coast. Right. And so it was a whole new mindset for me in that way. But I will tell you something, when the aforementioned Tony Morial had been at Average Joe's before I got there, and Tony was kind of recruiting me to come over, and he played me a couple things. And one of the things that he played me was the Rehab album called Welcome Home. Yeah. With the song Welcome Home. And I remember Tony and I were driving back from Birmingham. We went to see Colt in Birmingham, and we were driving back up to Nashville. And he played Welcome Home for me, and I made him play that about 15 times in a row.
Sounds like a number one song, though.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought, and I swear to God, because of my youthful naivety and my belief that I was a record guy that could change the world, I honestly thought we were going to change the format with that song.
Yeah.
Problem is, we were just a couple of years early before that sort of thing became hip and vogue. And as they say, if you're 10 minutes ahead of your time, you're a legend. If you're 60 minutes ahead of your time, you're a footnote. We were just a little bit too far ahead of our time. But I believe Rehab's album was the reason I went to Average Joe's. And then, I mean, hearing Colt with John Michael Montgomery and Riding in the Country, and I had heard Dirt Road Anthem with Brantley and a couple of other things, Kick It in the Sticks. So, I mean, I knew Colt had a possibility, and I thought, man, and I watched the crowds, and I'm thinking there is something here. And then I went out and banged my head against the wall at country radio for 2 years because guys were telling me, we know he's really great, but he doesn't belong on the radio. And I'm thinking, somebody please explain the fucking difference of that to me. But I never quite got that part. But I loved those guys, and I loved what I learned over there. And I'd still be there if it wasn't for the opportunity to be able to move back and engineer that deal that got me back to Minnesota. But I still talk to Shannon regularly. I talk to Colt regularly. I listen to that music regularly. And I would do that deal in a heartbeat again. I would go back to work at Average Joe's. I would never second guess that decision ever.
Those are a bunch of good guys. I got to, while I was in college, one of my best friends is Demon Jones, and he played with Rehab for a long time.
Right.
And,
right.
I got to go on the road with them and sell merch and that kind of thing, and hang out with all those Average Joe's guys. And
yeah,
that's a tight knit group of guys. And like you said,
they
were before their time, really. Now
there's no doubt about it. And Shannon has branched out to making movies, and the music division is still just doing fine. And Shannon's wife is a best-selling author, and her company Guerrilla Marketing is killing it. Forrest has done an awesome job over there. So I mean, they've grown the company just beautifully. And as I said, I mean, I had a great time there, and it was difficult to leave. But Shannon just looked at me and goes, Tom, if somebody told me I could run Average Joe's from Valdosta, Georgia, like they're telling you, you can run Show Dog from Virginia, Minnesota, my ass would be out of here in a heartbeat too. So there was no hard feelings. There were no grudges. And as I said, we're still in contact. I'm still in contact with Colt. I really thought we could make a difference. I believed that then, and I still believe it now, and I'm still pissed off we didn't make a difference. But it sure as hell wasn't for lack of trying, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's been an amazing run for you. It's been a lot of fun. And I know you had this this whatever it was turning 60. But dude, we still got so much more to do.
Well, Laura, I thank you. I think so. And I agree with you. We do. It's just retirement is a really interesting deal. It's a lot more emotional than I expected it to be. I spent a lot of time sort of looking back, kind of digging deep into the hard drive, if you will, and thinking about some things I hadn't thought about in a long time. And it just, I wasn't exactly sure what was going to come and how this was going to play out. And I had a preconceived notion of it back in August when I made the decision versus in December when it was happening to now I have gone from myopic to panoramic. I mean, I I see it completely differently. I think one of the biggest fallacies about retirement is, well, you have to have a purpose every day. Well, Jesus Christ, I just had a purpose for 46 years. I don't know that I can find a brand new purpose overnight. And I don't know that anybody should be putting that kind of pressure on themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And for a little while, I was kind of feeling really guilty if I was laying around in my pajamas and didn't leave the house until after I watched The Price is Right. And I thought, well, what the hell am I feeling bad about that for, right? This is what I've worked my entire life to get here. And
That's
so
right.
it's taken me a little time in the adjustment, because there's a sense of isolation, and there's a sense of detachment, and there's a sense of how can I be this old to be retired, and there's a sense of, oh my God, I don't have an income anymore, and all the crazy stuff. And then there's this calm that just kind of comes over you, and he says, but man, this is what we've been playing for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm fortunate, knock on wood, my health is really good. I had my physical week and a half ago. Numbers are all good. So I've got my health, I've got desire, I've got resources, and I've got energy. Those are the 4 aces right now. This is my time. As long as I'm feeling like this is my time to just be as selfish as I really want to be, and see the people I want to see, and do the things that I want to do. Because, and I don't say this to sound arrogant or anything else, I've got nothing else to give. I was leading people for the majority of my life. I think if you asked my team, I think they would tell you I was a fair leader. I was tough, but I was fair. But I think if, 15 of them are coming for a reunion at the end of August, I think that speaks volumes about the fact that how people felt about us and about our team. But that whole just kind of notion of I don't want to be in charge anymore. I don't have any more emotion to give. I don't have any more advice to give. I don't want to lead. I don't want to be in charge. It took me a little while to sort of get over all of that. And now I just kind of look at it and go, I will give advice if people ask me. If I see something I don't like, I will most certainly say it, especially to the people that I love. But I have had the chance, Laura, to look back at what this was. And I oftentimes feel like I just was given one of the great starring roles in one of the great sitcoms of all time. Because it sometimes now just feels like it was in a whole nother life. I can't imagine going that fast anymore. I can't imagine the late nights and the early mornings and all that stuff anymore. Is that as I was doing it, I didn't leave anything there. And I'm most proud of that, that people knew, man, I told you the truth. I worked hard for you. And if you gave me 150%, I'm giving you 150% back. If you gave me 10%, then that's all I got. That's all I gave you back.
Right.
So
I wasn't really saying, I wasn't really saying that you got to go. I wasn't saying go work. I was just saying.
No, I agree. Just do whatever.
Go to Florida, man. Go do all those things.
No, you're spot on. And I didn't mean to make it sound like I was going back to work, because I'm not. And a couple of great ideas have been pitched to me, and I pitched a couple ideas. And then the more we talked about it, I'm thinking, damn, that sounds like a lot of work. I reserve the right to change my mind at any particular time. But I just, once I took the pressure off, and I think that's probably the easiest way to say it, is I just took the pressure off of myself. So if I'm not, quote unquote, productive, as to how productive relates to my previous life, for a little while, that's okay. And that, once I got to that spot, then everything just started to gel. And now I'm making the most of it. I'm on a board for a local cultural center. I'm volunteering a day a week at the food shelf. I'm playing my horn in the city band. I'm playing a little more golf than I've played in years. I'm spending a lot more time with friends. I'm making, I've been to Vegas to see Carrie and Kenny, going to Nashville. Lone Star's playing up here next month. I just saw John. So I'm finding these ways to just keep myself fulfilled and keep myself active. But most importantly, all just based in the sense of I still have opportunities and things that I can do and be a part of that very few people have. And I will continue to make use of all of that because that's the greatest gift I've been given.
All right. Well, we're just waiting on you to come to Macon.
No doubt. I want to meet you in person, man. I want to take you out for lunch, man. Let's do some more of this.
Yeah, no, I would love to. And Laura, if it all works out, and here's a crazy thing. This was never on my bingo card, but a good friend of mine who my very first friend when I moved to Virginia, Minnesota in 1973. We've been friends since 6th grade at Horseman School. Ben Deutsch is his name. Ben was the senior VP of communications for Coca-Cola when he retired 7 years ago. He's got his master's, and he's now teaching a high-level communications class at University of Georgia. 15 kids get in this class. For the first 2 semesters, he had to go recruit people. Now he's got 150 people that want to get in this 15-person class. Teaches it once a week. He lectures for an hour, and then he brings in people from Coca-Cola, from FedEx, from St. Jude, from Chick-fil-A, from NASCAR. I mean, bringing in all of these communications, senior VP of communications, these folks that are going to tell you stories that aren't going to appear in any textbook and are going to give you insight into stuff that no other place on earth are you going to get it than that. And so Ben and I have been talking about his curriculum and back and forth and leadership and all sorts of different things. And so this past January, when we were in Arizona, we get together every year out there with about 6 of us. He and I were sitting up late night one night talking, and I said, man, when you get your dates for the fall, I said, send it to me because I want to come down and I want to audit the class. I really kind of want to see what you're doing. And he looked at me, he said, audit hell. He said, you're going to come down and lecture. So sometime in the month of September, and I'm hoping it's September 23rd, and we're going to try to finalize that this week. And the point is, if it is that, then sometime that week, I will see your happy asses in Macon.
Oh,
There we go.
So yeah, I am going to, I mean, so you think about that 2 kids from a small town in northern Minnesota had careers like that, and their careers are going to cross paths in a classroom at the University of Georgia 52 years later. What are the fucking odds of that? I mean, it's just simply remarkable to me. And it's just another one of those fairy dust moments that I'm really well aware of, that I'm one of the lucky ones. I've led a charmed life, and this is just another one of those examples. So yeah, you may see me sooner rather than later. Be careful what you wish for, Justin.
There we go. Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, but as soon as we finalize that, we'll let you know. But kind of keep that Wednesday or Thursday of that week, Laura. What it's like,
Okay.
Keep that. Just kind of hold that open if you can. And then once I finalize, we'll put that on the calendar, and then I'll definitely come down and see you.
Well, I would love to see you, and I know Justin would love to meet you.
Absolutely. No doubt. Yes, sir.
And we thank you for taking all this time with us. It has been a lot of fun and actually very inspirational as well.
No doubt.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I'm this whole gratitude thing, I don't want to just overdo it, but it is really remarkable. And again, in a world that has gone crazy, and we forget to tell each other some days that we matter to each other, and a little of that, we all could use a little bit more of it, giving it and receiving it. So I appreciate you liking that idea. Feel free to pass it on, and please feel free to pick up the phone this week and call somebody, and then let me know how it goes.
All right. It's mine and Justin's friend, Tom Baldrica, the radio and records man here on the Old Boots podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. We appreciate you.